I know what a lot of people are probably thinking, so I'll say it now. No, not all furries are bad. I've spoken to a number of them, and honestly those conversations have all been normal and pleasant experiences. There's no denying the whole idea behind being a furry could be somewhat odd to all of us non-furries though. You generally don't see people walking around dressed as animals every day. It's a hobby that will definitely make a lot of people scratch their heads. It's also a very expensive hobby for those who go all out with their fursuits. Apparently the heads alone can cost several $1,000s. So either those furries are very well off, or they're really good at saving up their money. Of course, every fandom has its bad side, and the furry community is no exception. There have been some actual criminals among them, and in this video I'll be covering 7 of them. Here are 7 of the most evil furries. By the way, the Patreon version of this video actually has 8 entries. I had to cut one out because for that one I'd basically be censoring every other word just to get this video monetized. So check out the Patreon if you're interested in seeing it. Jonathan Eugene Beer went by several names in the furry community, with some knowing him as John Remmer and others by the name Vengeful Wrath and also as The Geist. Born on March 5, 1992, Beer lived in Lancaster, Ohio and was involved in fursuit making, and also had his own fursuit. In April 2010, when Beer was 18 years old, he was arrested and charged with battery and gross imposition. The charges stem from sexual conduct with a 9-year-old girl. According to court records, these incidents occurred on multiple occasions in Black Lake, Ohio. The indictment included 1 count of sexual battery and 2 counts of gross imposition. Rather than go to trial, Beer entered into a plea deal. In July 2010, he pleaded guilty to battery of a minor. The court sentenced him to 3 years in prison, followed by 5 years of probation after his release. Because of the nature of his conviction, Beer was classified as a Tier 3 sex offender. This is the most serious classification in the state of Ohio's sex offender registry system. Tier 3 offenders are required to register for life and must update their registration information every 90 days. After serving his prison sentence, Beer was released and began his mandated probation period. However, his legal troubles didn't end there. On October 16, 2019, Beer was arrested again for parole violations. He was taken into custody and held in prison while awaiting a parole board hearing to determine his status. He was eventually released on December 23, 2019 and continued serving parole under the original 2010 conviction. More recently, on May 23, 2023, Beer faced new charges in Lancaster, Ohio. He was arrested for assault and criminal damaging. According to the affidavit, there was an altercation with a roommate that resulted in a laceration on the hand and damage to property. The assault charge was filed as a first-degree misdemeanor and the criminal damaging charge as a second-degree misdemeanor. For a while during these incidents, Beer continued to maintain a presence in the furry community under his various usernames. His status as a convicted sex offender and the details of his crimes have been documented on various websites that track offenders within the furry fandom, as community members have worked to warn others about his history. Beer's conviction and ongoing registration requirements means that his information remains publicly accessible through Ohio's sex offender registry, where his photograph, address, and conviction details are available for anyone to view. His lifetime registration requirement ensures that this information will continue to be a matter of public record for the rest of his life. Well, if you watch Deadwing Dork's channel, then you're most likely familiar with this guy, since this face appears in the bottom left corner of most of the streams on that channel. James Christopher Hoyt was born on October 7, 1981. In the furry community, he goes by Sangi Nativus, usually shortened to just Sangi. He also used the name DJ Tobo and later DJ Nativus. He's been active in the fandom since 2006, starting off with a grey wolf persona before switching to a red wolf character in 2007. Over the years, Hoyt lived in a lot of different places. Wherever he went, he got involved with the local furry scene. His biggest contribution to the fandom was creating Inked Fur, a print service and online storefront that let furry artists sell high-quality prints of their work. Over 150 artists ended up working with his company. He also DJ'd at furry conventions and ran a weekly radio show back in 2006 through a station called Furry FM. So on the surface, Hoyt looked like a productive member of the community. He ran a business that employed artists, played music at events, and he was a familiar face at conventions. But of course, there was another side to him. Hoyt had been arrested multiple times on charges related to offences involving minors. Mugshots from Salt Lake City, Utah appeared online documenting these arrests. According to a journal he posted on Fur Affinity, the arrests involved interacting with an underage individual on the internet. Hoyt claimed he thought the person was 19 when he messaged them on a furry dating site called Pounced. Hoyt later claimed that a Utah attorney got his criminal record expunged in 2018 after he completed probation. He said the charge was, quote, dealing in harmful material to a minor, which is not classified as a sex offense under Utah law. And we know that he claimed this because he edited his own WikiFur page to make it look less incriminating towards him, but the expungement didn't make his past disappear entirely. Archives of those mugshots still exist on the internet. There were also accusations from at least one person on Twitter who claimed Hoyt had started a sexual relationship with them when they were 15 and he was in his 30s. Then came September 2018. A massive leak of chat logs from a Telegram channel rocked the furry fandom. The channel was called Zoo Sadist Evidence, and it contained messages, images, and files documenting a ring of people engaged in extreme animal abuse. Members discussed things I'm not going to describe in detail here. The content was horrifying by any standard. The ringleader of the group was a man I covered literally in my last video, Levi Dane Simmons, who went by Nelazar online and used the name Snakefing on Telegram. He was also the ex-boyfriend of Sangi, and Sangi's name appeared in those chat logs. When the logs came out, Hoyt tried to excuse his chat history as sarcasm, but he had been a source for forwarded messages directly from Snakething. According to people who analysed the logs, what appeared in them was disturbing. There were discussions that suggested a coordinated grooming strategy involving Snakething's underage nephew. The logs show conversations where participants discussed children in ways that made it clear they weren't joking. After the logs dropped, several artists pulled their work from Inked Fur. Hoyt locked down his Twitter and deleted his Telegram account. Despite all of this, Hoyt was allowed to operate as a dealer at Midwest Fur Fest later that year, which caused significant backlash. The controversy around Hoyt and others led further confusion, another major convention, to update its code of conduct in December 2018 to allow them to revoke membership from anyone with a history of sexually predatory behaviour. We all know what happened to Snakething now. In March 2020, he pleaded guilty to 6 charges of encouraging child sexual abuse in the first degree and 4 charges of encouraged child sexual abuse in the second degree, and got 25 years in prison, where he continues to rot to this day. Hoyt, as far as publicly available records show, was never charged in connection with the Zoo Sadist ring, but the internet has a long memory. The chat logs are still out there, as are his mugshots, and of course the accusations are still out there. Inked Fur appears to still be operating. Hoyt has managed to maintain his presence in the furry fandom, despite everything that came to light. Aaron Thomas Usury was born on May 11, 1994, in Mesa, Arizona. Like many people within the furry community, he went by several names, most notably Zel the Wolf, but also Zel Naruto, Zel Veleno, and Zel Wolf. Since one of his names was Zel Naruto, it's fairly obvious that he was a bit of a weeb, hence why his black and white wolf persona had Japanese kanji characters on it. Usury was quite active on DeviantArt. His profile showed him deeply involved in the furry fandom. He posted poems, photographs, and numerous illustrations of his wolf character that he commissioned from other artists. Though all of these images are now lost due to only archives of his DeviantArt page existing, and the images in the gallery no longer loading properly. He also apparently shared photos of other people in fursuits and regularly commented on fursuit performances at conventions. He claimed to have attended Arizona's annual FurCon event and was enthusiastic about the community, frequently asking about fursuits he saw in videos and praising their performances. Though of course, him being in a video like this obviously means he had a much darker side. An investigation had begun against him when Overland Park Police Department in Kansas contacted Mesa Police on March 23, 2016. A parent had discovered that their daughter and her friend had been in an inappropriate online relationship with a man from Mesa since September 2014. The girls were both 12 years old. According to authorities, Usury met at least one of the girls through DeviantArt. What started as interactions on an art-sharing website escalated quickly. Police found evidence on the girls' PCs showing photos and videos of Yusri that was sexual in nature. The girls had also sent him nude pictures and videos of themselves. The communication happened mostly through Skype and Google Hangouts. On April 12, 2016, police arrested Yusri. When officers searched his PC and phone, they found pictures and videos involving him and the two girls. During their forensic examination of his devices, investigators discovered something else. There was a video showing Yusri engaged in sexual activity with his family dog. The video showed the dog performing oral sex on him. Yusri was charged with sexual exploitation of a minor, luring a minor for sexual exploitation, providing obscene material to minors, and bestiality. The day after his arrest, while being held at Lower Buckeye Jail, Yusri agreed to an interview with Channel 12 News. In that jailhouse interview, he admitted his guilt and expressed remorse for what he'd done. He told reporters he didn't plan to contest the charges and that he knew he deserved to be there. During the interview, Yusri tried to explain his actions. He said the situation started innocently, on DeviantArt, but spiraled out of control. He admitted to sending and receiving nude pictures with the girls, which then progressed to videos. When asked about the bestiality charge, he acknowledged having a small dog and admitted to being curious about sexual acts with animals, though he claimed it was never gratifying. Then he made a statement that raised eyebrows. He said his relationship with the 12-year-olds was gratifying because he had fallen in love with them. He insisted that people don't understand that such feelings are possible, but he also said he never planned to meet the girls in person.
I don't plan to contest the charges. I know why I'm here. I deserve to be here. I was able to help one of them through her cutting and issues for a long time. I was making progress. And then over time, it became more about me and less about them, and that's when I lost everything that I stood for. Everyone seems to just take into their own minds that it's not possible. You can't be in love with someone. Well, you can. Let them know, hey, I know that you're on the internet a lot. I know that this is really exciting for you, but be mindful that there are things out there that you will want to avoid, and here are what some of those things are, and here's why we want you to avoid them.
Yusri ultimately pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 17 years in prison for sexual exploitation of a minor. His case became documented on various websites that track sex offenders within fandoms, particularly those focused on community-based organizations like the furry community, where minors are often present. Yusri's case became one of several high-profile criminal cases involving members of the furry community that received media attention in the mid-2010s. His use of the furry persona and his involvement in the community while simultaneously engaging in criminal behavior with minors added another layer to the ongoing bad publicity that the fandom already receives.
Hey everybody, Spark here. I just want to take a moment to wish everybody a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend. And if you have ever served in our armed forces, whether active or retired, I just want to say thank you for your services that you provided for us. And hope everyone has a safe and fun weekend. And enjoy this nice summer weather that will be coming soon. So take care of yourself.
Jamie Lee Joyce was born on November 11, 1973 in Indiana. He went by the name Spark Dalmatian in the furry community, often shortened to just Spark. His persona was, as you might have guessed, a Dalmatian, and he was deeply embedded in the Midwestern furry scene for years, being active on multiple furry platforms and belonging to groups like Indiana Furs and West Michigan Fur Meets, and he administered a fur affinity group called Elkhart Fur Meets. He also attended many conventions throughout the 2010s. I'm not going to say them all because there's just too many, but here's the full list right here. That's a lot of conventions over a lot of years. He was a regular presence at these events, walking around in his fursuit, meeting people and posing for photos. But here's what a lot of people at those conventions didn't know. On August 31st, 2007, Jamie Lee Joyce was convicted of child molestation and he was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Yes, he had already been convicted of a crime against a child before he started showing up at all those furry conventions in 2012. He spent time in prison, got out, and then spent the next 5 years attending events where families of minors were present. Indie FurCon, for instance, is known for being a family-friendly convention that welcomes attendees of all ages, and he went there every year from 2012 to 2017. And despite being a convicted sex offender, there he was, year after year, taking photos with other fursuiters, hanging out at meetups, and running a local furry group. But in 2017, he would offend again. On November 3rd, US Marshals arrested him for possession of child. This was just a few months after he'd attended both Indy FurCon 2017 and Motor City FurCon. The details of what exactly was found on his devices weren't publicly released in the same way some federal cases are. Charges were serious enough that this wasn't going to be another 2-year sentence. According to prison records, Joyce is scheduled to be released on July 11, 2034, meaning he was sentenced to 17 years, which tells you something about the severity of what the investigators found. While incarcerated, Joyce apparently created a comic called The Life and Times of Spark, described as a semi-autographic work from the perspective of an incarcerated queer person in the furry community. It's sold through a prison art publisher, so even from behind bars, he's maintained his furry identity, and presumably almost nobody knew about his 2007 conviction. The furry community doesn't have any centralized system for background checks, and conventions don't run attendees through sex offender registries. If someone shows up with a fursuit and a friendly demeanor, they're generally welcomed in. Joyce took advantage of that. For years, he moved through the community with a conviction for child molestation already on his record, and then he got arrested again, this time on federal charges enough to put him away until 2034. He was in his early 40s when he was arrested in 2017, and he'll be in his 60s when he gets out, assuming he serves his full sentence. And when he does get out, he'll be a registered sex offender for life, with separate convictions related to crimes against children. And hopefully this time, furry conventions won't just let him in. Matthew Ade was born in October 1969 and spent decades as a fixture in the American furry community. He went by the name Danrook Rueface, and as that name has Rue in it, you could probably guess that his persona was a kangaroo, and he lived in the Boston area. Ade had been a staff member at Anthrocon since 1997, making him one of the longest-serving volunteers at what became the largest furry convention in the world. He worked on the charity auction team for years, helping run events that raised money for animal welfare organizations. Convention organizers publicly thanked him by name multiple times, listing him among the people they relied on year after year. He attended smaller regional conventions too, where other attendees recognized him and considered him a friend. By all external appearances, he was a well-connected community member who had built up a reputation over 2 decades. Then came February 2017. On February 26th, Ade, then 47 years old, met a 14-year-old boy in an online chat group. Ade was aware of the boy's age from the start. Despite knowing he was talking to a child, he requested that the boy send him photographs, to which the boy complied. Ade kept communicating with the boy. Then on March 4th, he drove from Massachusetts to the boy's home in Londonderry, New Hampshire. Over March 4th and March 5th, Ade sexually assaulted the boy multiple times at his residence. On March 6th, police began investigating after receiving a report of a potential assault. Ade was arrested on March 20th. Massachusetts State Police picked him up on a warrant issued by Londonderry Police. He was charged with 3 counts of felonious assault. Prosecutors argued that he was a flight risk, and a judge agreed. Ade remained in custody while awaiting trial. During investigation, law enforcement conducted a forensic analysis of Ade's computers. His devices contained various images and videos of additional child material beyond what was connected to his original victim. On September 14, 2017, it was announced that Ade had pleaded guilty in federal court to 1 count of producing child porn. His plea agreement came with a binding stipulated sentence of 17 years, followed by 10 years of supervised release. On December 22nd, the sentence was handed down. Ade got 17 years in federal prison, to be followed by a decade of supervised release. What made Ade's case difficult for the furry community to process is just how long he managed to deceive them. Ade wasn't someone who just showed up, committed a crime and vanished. He had been around since the late 1990s. He'd helped raise money for charity, and people had posed for photos with him at conventions. They'd also worked alongside him as volunteers. Whatever else Ade may have done for the community over the years, it was all completely undone by his heinous criminal activity. Due to his awful actions, Matthew Ade will spend what will most likely be the rest of his functional life behind bars. Tonya Dillard went by a lot of names in the furry community. She'd been part of the fandom since she was a teenager and started making fursuits in 2014. Together with Jacob Berkowitz, who surprisingly was only known by 2 names in the community, those being Jax or Luna, they ran a business called Lockjaw Arts, creating fursuits for fellow community members. In February 2020, Dillard had been hospitalized twice within a week, once for depression and what appears to have been a suicide attempt. A month later, she and Berkowitz would be sitting in a Las Vegas jail cell charged with murder. In March 2020, the couple came up with a plan. They posted a dating app on Craigslist with a simple goal: lure someone, rob them, kill them, steal their car, and disappear into the woods. 44-year-old Hector Mendez Hernandez responded to that ad. On March 27th, he picked them up. What happened next depends on whose story you believe. Berkowitz later told police that Hernandez had touched Dillard's thigh and punched him, which set everything off. But Dillard told investigators the murder had been premeditated all along. Once they got Hernandez back to his place, Dillard kept him distracted while Berkowitz grabbed the gun she bought from a pawn shop. Berkowitz opened fire. He shot Hernandez about 4 times, hitting him at least twice in the head. Then he stabbed him at least 25 times in the upper torso. Finally, he beat him with a dumbbell until Hernandez stopped moving. During the shooting, one bullet hit Dillard in the finger. After the murder, Dillard didn't stay quiet about what they had done. She contacted her friend, Paige Ferguson, and told her they'd killed and skinned a dog. When Ferguson said that was disturbing, Dillard replied, "If you think that's strange, I'm sitting next to a dead body." Dillard sent Ferguson pictures proving it. According to sources who spoke with Dillard afterward, she told them the opportunity had been handed to them on a silver platter, and that she was now officially a psychopath. The source said Dillard's voice was like ice, that she wasn't concerned about police or anything else, and that she was happy about what she'd done. Dillard told Ferguson they planned to empty their refrigerator, stuff the body inside, and once it was dark, drive Hernandez's car out to town. Ferguson took screenshots of everything Dillard sent her and went straight to the police. Officers set up surveillance on Hernandez's home on Colebrook Street. They watched as Dillard and Berkowitz came out of the house and drove away in a Mercedes. Police pulled them over. Berkowitz immediately blurted out that the body was in the bathroom. The coroner determined that Hernandez died from blunt head trauma, with contributing factors being the multiple stab wounds and gunshots. Both Dillard and Berkowitz were charged with murder with a deadly weapon, conspiracy to commit murder, robbery with a deadly weapon, and conspiracy to commit robbery. There were also disturbing allegations that went beyond this one murder. Sources close to the couple alleged they'd been adopting animals from rescue shelters, skinning them for their pelts, and selling authentic fursuits made from real animal skin online. The dog they claimed to have skinned wasn't their first. One source reported that Dillard told them this would be her first and last murder, and that in prison, she'd have time to think about what she'd done, but the way she talked about it immediately after, bragging and sending photos, suggests someone who wasn't troubled by what had happened at all. Hector Mendez Hernandez answered a dating ad. He offered 2 strangers a ride, and for that, he was shot, stabbed, and beaten to death in his own home by people who planned his murder before they ever met him. Frank Sato Felix and Josh Acosta were 2 furries who met through La Habra Fur Bowling, a fursuit bowling social group in Southern California. Jennifer Yost introduced her teenage daughter Caitlin to the furry subculture, where she met Felix. At the time, Felix was 25 years old and Caitlin was 17. Acosta was 21 and working as an army mechanic stationed at Fort Irwin in Barstow. According to prosecutors, Felix became obsessed with Caitlin and they became romantically involved. Her parents disapproved of the relationship. Caitlin testified that things were more complicated than a simple forbidden romance. She told Acosta that her stepfather, Christopher Yost, had been abusing her on a weekly basis from ages 7 to 15. She claimed she told Felix about the abuse and asked for help running away from home, but according to her testimony, Felix used this information against her, blackmailing her into having sex with him by threatening to tell her mother about the molestation. Whether the abuse allegations were true remains unclear. On September 19, 2016, Felix messaged a fellow furry named Cody Dunn on Facebook, saying he was stressed about things he couldn't discuss and that he might be assisting someone in murder. When Dunn pressed for details, Felix backed off and claimed he had only been talking about killing an animal. Felix gave Acosta a shotgun and ammunition. On September 24, 2016, Felix and Acosta drove to the Yost home in Fullerton. The plan was to wait until everyone went to sleep. After Jennifer and Christopher Yost and their house guests went to bed, Caitlin went outside and sat in Felix's truck with him in the driveway. Acosta entered the home with a shotgun and found Arthur Boucher, a 28-year-old family friend, asleep on the living room couch. Acosta shot Boucher in the head as he slept. Then he went into the master bedroom and shot Jennifer. Christopher Yost woke up and tried to escape through an outdoor patio area, but Acosta shot him in the head. Acosta fled the home and met up with Felix and Caitlin. They drove back to Felix's home in Sun Valley, where they burned their clothes and tried to destroy their cell phones. Left behind at the house were the Yost's 6-year-old and 9-year-old daughters, who woke up to find their parents and friend dead. At 8:21 that morning, the 6-year-old called 911 to report that her mother was dead on the bed, and her father was dead in the backyard. Police responded at 8:26 and found the 3 bodies. Fullerton police investigators arrested Acosta at his army barracks in Fort Irwin. Felix was arrested at his home in Sun Valley. Both men were held on a $1 million bail each. Felix and Acosta were each charged with 3 felony counts of special circumstances murder. In November 2018, Acosta was found guilty of murder. On December 4, 2018, he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole, along with an additional 75 years to life. Felix's trial took much longer to reach conclusion. In November 2024, Frank Sato Felix was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder. On April 11, 2025, he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. During Acosta's trial, the girl testified that she planned to run away with help from Acosta and Felix, but didn't know they planned violence. She also said that she planned to tell her mother about the alleged abuse and leave home the night of the killings. The prosecution painted a different picture, with the district attorney describing Felix as the mastermind who orchestrated the killings because he was obsessed with Caitlin and the Yosts had ordered him to stay away from her. Before the murders, Felix had allegedly written to Caitlin that she was the only one that made him happy. He wanted to live happily ever after without any parental interference. Regardless, 3 people died that night, and 2 young girls woke up to find their parents and family friend shot dead in their home. And that's the end of the video, folks. If you found this video interesting, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, and consider supporting me on Patreon. All patrons get early ad-free access to videos, and the higher tiers get their name on the board and a shout out. I'd like to thank all my patrons for their support, especially those whose names you're seeing on screen now, particularly Losanna, Xander Stewart, Brandon Field, Anthony B. Fernandez, John Blood Smells Like Duty, Helen Korn, Kyle, BAN, Brendan O'Connell, Adam Clayton, Count Nagula, Danny Jade, Paul Mendoza, Squishy, Alex Christmas, Brody Millers, Belle Seagal, Stimulate, Inquisitor Zarius, and Dick the Cock Johnson and the Woodmaster at WrestleMania X69 or maybe not dude. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.